Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I just want to relatively quickly, but you know me, just wanted to bring this little mini series to a close so that I can think about something else. I started off asking about the three elements that are absolutely crucial to our plants that we haven't talked about when we've been talking about, you know, plant feed and fertilizers and stuff, yeah? So that's not this subject. And those three are carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, yeah? They're crucial, absolutely crucial, and yet they never get talked about. Well, if you're going to talk about them, you know, a little bit of what's going on in the plant might be useful. Now, I'll say right at the beginning, you don't need to know any of this. And if you're not interested in this sort of thing, skip out. It's not compulsory. But I was fascinated many years ago. This isn't a now thing. This is not new discoveries. I've known this, well, what seems like forever. But anyway, I did sort of mention that you might want to think about how those things, those three elements, get into your plant. Yeah? Well, hydrogen and oxygen are really nice to us because they're like buddies. They like to stick together. And when they get together, it's called water. H2O. Yeah, hydrogen and oxygen. Yeah. So water is H2O. So there's a couple of bits of hydrogen and a bit of oxygen. Yeah. And it's called water. And how's it get in the plant? Well, it gets in there in two ways. Now, I know you got one straight away. We pour water on our roots and they go into the plant, along with the other nutrients we've been talking about. Yeah, so yeah, that's one way. But the other way comes back to that other element. If we've done the hydrogen and the oxygen, what about the carbon then? Well, there's a ready supply of that lurking outside the plant. It's called the air. And in the air, it's in a form called CO2. Yeah, you're breathing it out now. And the plants are going, cheers for that, we need that. And we'll help you out in a minute because you need oxygen. Yeah, so you give us some CO2, we'll give you some oxygen, and we'll all happily live together on the planet. Quite honestly, that really is how it works in its simplest form. Anyway, so obviously to get the carbon that the plant needs, the stuff the universe is made of, yeah, it's in everything. It's pretty damn important. Okay, it obviously needs to get some air into the plant. So it has holes in the leaves. I'm not going any deeper than that. There are holes in the leaves to allow some air to come in. Yeah? And part of that air is CO2. And a plant needs food. Yeah? Like we do. You know, we might have steak and chips or a cheese sandwich or something. Well, plants need food as well, and the sort of food they're using is like in the form of sugars, glucosey things. That's as technical as it's going to get. Glucosey things, that'll do. It doesn't need to get deep. Yeah, so it basically takes the carbon and some hydrogen and some oxygen, and with a bit of fairy dust produces those complex molecules which it uses as food. So what's the fairy dust then? It's light. Yeah? To do that process, it needs to take in some energy. And our plants have a clever way of doing that with the chlorophyll. That's why their leaves are green. Yeah? That's why it shows up green. Yeah? So that's the fairy dust that goes in. It's the light. And the combination of those three elements and the energy from the light produces those complex molecules which the plant can then use for food. It's pretty damn clever stuff. I love it. That's only half the story. The other half of the story is everything needs energy. You do. You get out of bed and you haven't got much, you'll need to do something about it if you want to go for a run. You know, if you want to run and catch your bus because you got your lazy ass out of bed too late and, you know, you've got to run for the bus, you need energy to do that. And to get that energy, you need to put some food in. Yeah? That's what we do. That's what our plants do as well. So, plants need energy. Well, there's a magic process going on in the background called respiration. And don't get that muddled up with breathing like what you is doing, because it's not the same thing in plants. Respiration is going on all the time in the background. And it's a process that converts the food into energy, providing it's got some. And the bit that fascinates me is that if you actually look at the chemical formula going on with photosynthesis, you know, it needs, I forget the numbers don't matter, but it needs quite a few carbon bits and about twice as many hydrogen bits and some oxygen and some fairy dust via light, that's the energy, to actually create these complex molecules. And if you have a look at the way respiration works, it's exactly the same formula, that back to front. It's just so simple, and yet, I don't know, I just marvel at it. So going on in the background, a relatively slow process is the conversion of food to the energy your plant needs. Yeah, and to get that food, it's using photosynthesis and getting some stuff in through those holes in the leaves via air. Unfortunately, when it takes that stuff in, the air, there's oxygen in the air, there's some hydrogen in the air, there's some moisture in the air, which is some more H2O going in. And the whole process, lucky for us, ends up with a surplus of O's and oohs and ahs. There's too much flipping oxygen for the process. So it gives that off because it doesn't need it anymore. So while the old photosynthesis is going on, there's a waste product called oxygen. Well, we'll have some of that. Yeah, it's just good stuff. I love it. Yeah. And the other waste product is produced because there's an excess of water, basically. So it gives off moisture as well. And why is there an excess of that? Well, while we were busy watering our plants at the bottom, yeah, there's a lovely process in the plants called transpiration, yeah, which gets faster as it gets warmer. But basically it allows what comes in at the bottom of the plant to move up to the top of the plant where the photosynthesis is going on. But you end up with too much, so it has to get rid of some of it, so that comes out through the holes along with the oxygen, yeah? So the air's going in and the oxygen and the excess moisture is coming out. That's just works quite nicely. And the only difference really is respiration doesn't stop unless it totally runs out of food. It just ticks away in the background, providing the energy the plant needs, yeah? And then clever stuff happens with all the nutrients that we've given it, providing it can get at them, and, you know, produces all the cells and stuff grows and roots come out, new growths and blooms and stuff. I don't need to go too deep into that. But whereas the respiration takes place all the time, slowly in the background using up the food, the actual photosynthesis can only happen when there's light around. But it's quite a fast process, especially when the light's bright. So it's creating food at a rate of knots greater often than the plant needs. So orchids are very clever, because what they don't need for the growing the new bits and stuff, they can just push to one side and store it. And that's why we've got the pseudo-bulbs and the canes. We'll store that up for later. It's just like your backup cupboard where you've got your spare jars of coffee and stuff like that. In case you've used up the latest stuff, you've got your backup. And that's how the orchids work. You don't need to know any of that. But at that level, I find it fascinating. I don't need to know it, but I find it fascinating at that level. If I try and get to a deeper level than that with all these chemical things going on, I get lost, quite honestly, and it gets too much for me. And I just keep backing away from it, thinking I don't really need to know this and it's getting complicated, so I don't go there. But I just like the idea of understanding what photosynthesis... Nurse, more coffee. I like to know that photosynthesis is doing what it does and how it does it, and respiration is doing what it does and sort of how it does it, and what I need to do to help it all. So, I'll provide some light. Now, I don't really provide the light, do I? But I can put the plants in a place where they can get some. I can do that bit, yeah? And I can provide the water and the other elements that we've done to death at the bottom of the plant. And then the plant will do the rest, yeah? And it's clever stuff. And if the plants weren't doing that, we ain't going to last long, because all our oxygen is coming from that source. Now, here's some food for thought that isn't a series, it's a one-off. We've got a problem, some say, with climate change, global warming. Yeah? We've got an excess of carbon dioxide through our industrial processes and things like that. Yeah? What do plants use? Carbon dioxide. And there are ways of growing plants where you can increase levels of carbon dioxide, not too much, but the plant growth really takes off. Why do we think all the plants were so big back when the dinosaurs were around? Because there was still a fair bit of volcanic activity going on, and there was a hell of a lot of CO2 around. Now go back to your global warming. And the bottom line is, if we've got excesses of carbon dioxide, what's going to use it up and grow bigger and better? That's the plants. And what happens to the plants? We come along, and other things with 4 legs and some with 2 legs, and we eat those things and produce our food. Wind that round your head for a bit. So is global warming that much of a big deal? If the plants are there and they're allowed to do their thing, they will grow bigger and better as a consequence of extra CO2. And if they do that, we might do a bit better as well. Because what's their waste product? That's the bit we want, the oxygen. And I like that too. See you next time. Thanks for visiting my channel. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are some others you could watch below. You can just click on the thumbnails. If you'd like to see more of my videos, please subscribe to my channel. You can use the link below. I post on most days, so hope to see you again soon. Thanks for stopping by.